to everyone to the Mental Health Matters workshop that will be led by Father Fiegel and Dobrodyka Irena Soluk Fiegel. I will have the pleasure of reading the biography for Pani Irena. So Irena came into spiritual care through personal experience of illness and study of nursing, philosophy, psychology, and theology. She studied nursing in Lviv, Ukraine, philosophy in Lublin, Poland, theology and psychology in Ottawa and in Toronto. Irena has finished her residency at St. Michael's Hospital in Toronto in 2003 and since then has worked in multiple clinical settings with special interest in psychiatry, trauma, resiliency, and emergency. She has presented on the topic of spirituality in healthcare at different national conferences and has been actively involved in ongoing education with healthcare disciplines. Irena has become a manager at Sinai Health Systems in 2017 and has brought spiritual SPE education. I think that's spiritual.
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, it's clinical pastoral education.
Clinical pastoral education to the institution in 2019. She focuses on spiritual care education, on supporting development of spiritual care identity, identifying and claiming the voice of spiritual care practitioners, and gaining strong collaboration skills in healthcare settings. Irena is married with 2 children and loves reading and sunshine.
Wonderful. So now it's my honor to present Father Andrei Fiegel, Pastor of Holy Protection of Mother of God, Guelph, Ontario. Father Andrei answered his vocation to priesthood after finishing his degree in psychology and music from Concordia University in Montreal. His love of music led him to be part of Burlaki, a Ukrainian Zabava band, and provided opportunities to play and record internationally. His whole life he was involved in youth ministry, first with SUM, Ukrainian Youth Association, and later on parochial and eparchial levels. Presently, he continues his work with youth at the National Chaplain for SUM Canada and as a high school chaplain in Dufferin Peel Catholic School Board. Father Andrei is the pastor of the Ukrainian Catholic community in Guelph, Ontario. Father Andrei is passionate about sharing with people the message of loving God and encouraging all to honor their spiritual journey. Most recently, he spoke as a guest to a podcast, Moose Tracks, Locking Horns with Mental Health, advocating for people to take their mental health seriously and seek help from medical professionals and from the church. Father Andrei is married with 2 children and is an avid fan of the Habs and cycling.
Yes.
Was I good?
Дуже дякую. Very good.
I am not sure what Habs is, but
Oh, I think many know. Go Habs. As long as you know the 3 words, go Habs, go.
Okay, I'm still learning, but I'm happy to introduce you to all of us. Yeah.
Thank you, Melanie and Victoria.
Дякую.
Good afternoon. Slava Isusu Christu.
Slava навіки.
We'll be talking to you. If we're not making eye contact, it's because the actual lens is really weird. So if we're looking to the side, we're still trying to look at you. So please forgive us. So we'll be talking about mental health and faith. And today's goals and objectives for the session is to define terms. What is it exactly we're talking about? Speak about the impact of the pandemic on mental health. We'll discuss mental health continuum, faith and spirituality continuum, look at human emotions and their role, try to learn about how to recognize the emotions and how they present in the body. We'll have a check-in with ourselves, and for that I would invite you to have either a piece of paper and a pen or your phone, or you don't have to have anything, but it's nice to have it on the side. And the other, we'll discuss the tool of window of tolerance. So I know it's a lot of information, and we'll be trying to unpack all of it in this hour. We might not be If it's too much, or if you have many more questions, just let us know in the chat. And also, I'm thinking you will be receiving these slides as well, so there will be a point of reference for you for later. Okay.
Yeah.
So definition of terms. So when we're talking about mental illness, I just wanted to make a great distinction that at this time, we're not talking in this presentation about the pathology of specific severe mental illness. So we're not addressing schizophrenia, we're not addressing major depression, OCD, personality disorders that are quite quite severe. We'll be looking more at the generalized anxiety disorders and that certain things that we all experience in life. And when we're talking about mental health, we'll be looking more about actual definition of what is health look like. And when we're talking about spirituality, it means it's a good connection because
could I first just
sure.
mention? Okay, so when we're talking about just to have like because for some people this could be new language, or we have some kind of image of what we think about mental illness when we hear this. In my encounter usually with young people, it's almost like still taboo, even though there's been a lot of talk, a lot of presentations either by the government or the churches and the eparchies about putting aside the taboo. So if we think about this, for example, about our mental illness, mental health, just like we do about our physical, right? So physical illness would be, we broke an arm, our organs aren't working well, getting old, losing our hair, other things, those kind of things. And then that means that we know that we need to go see a physician. We need to see a professional because we are ill. Mental health is like physical health, doing exercising, eating right, and all these kind of routines that we do. So here as well, there are things that are, like Eden was saying, pathological in the sense that we need professional and clinical help, other things that we maintain and keep in check within ourselves. But it's about learning that language and learning to recognize what is what.
Okay. Very good point. Yes, okay. Thank you. And again, so a really excellent connection with what Deacon Bennett was saying, that when we are saying spirituality, it is all inclusive. So it does include our faith and religion and personal experience of God. So it's not versus religion, it's not against religion, it's including the religion in it. Mm-hmm. So just to give a few moments to talk about the effects of the pandemic, as many people have already, I don't really need to define it too much, but lots of people have found it extremely difficult to be living with the unknown, with the virus that is coming around, how it's going to affect each one personally, families, being under the constant threat to one's safety, physical, emotional safety. The threat is also to those that we love. And we do know that many people have lost their lives because of that, so that it is very real threat. We have faced great degree of isolation because of the quarantine and stay-at-home orders. We've been separated from people we love, from our friends, from our families. We've had really limited access to regular coping strategies that we use when we're feeling stressed. So most of us would reach out to our friends, we would go to church, we would go see a movie, we would go for get together with somebody, go for a hike. All of that has been really limited, or go to a gym, right? So all of that has been limited. We've really been severed from the faith community, and I think we've experienced it a lot in our parish.
Oh, absolutely. Particularly when all the first lockdown happened, and not having Easter in the traditional way as we come together, right? Trying to reinvent church. Right. And I know we all experienced this and went through that, trying to juggle and figure it out. So that was very, very stressful as well. And I think this last, in Ontario in particular, we had this last lockdown this year again, right around Easter time too. And that to me was actually one of the hardest times in almost my life, right? As a in the community, as a priest and for the community, because it was a decision we had to make that, 2 years in a row. The most significant liturgical moment of our Christian faith, right, of not being able to come together for that and sort of not having that connection. Community in a new way, right? Community online is very different than community together that way too.
And the constant changes, right? We plan for one thing and completely other thing happens and someone else is in control. So there was lack of having control over one's life and over one's actions. At the same time, all the unhealthy coping remained available to us, right? So what is the unhealthy coping? So using food, using alcohol, any other substances, shopping online, TV, watching too much TV, all of that has remained clearly available to everybody, and it affected everyone, every person to a different degree living through this pandemic. And so this brings us to what does it mean, and what does it mean within the mental health continuum model? To make it a little bit easier, and I know this is a lot of information, I'll put it on a spectrum from healthy to ill, and in the categories of mood, thought, behavior, physical changes, and substance use. And all of these, as you can see, when it's healthy, they're normal mood fluctuations. We feel calm, we feel confident, we go around about our day, things are okay, we can tolerate changes. When there are triggers and things are changing, we become more irritable, more impatient, more nervous about things. We might get more readily sad. When we begin to feel injured in our mental health, we are more readily get angry. And it's not to say that when we're healthy, we don't get angry. Nothing wrong with being angry, but this is a different level of anger, and the one that we cannot, we either are too rapid to anger, we're too reactive to it, or it's really at the different level that makes us act out of anger, right? We become more anxious, we have sadness that we cannot shake off, and then in the continuum of being ill, it's just the next level of all of these things, right? So within the continuum, there is different levels. So the same emotion, the same mood, being happy can be very healthy, and that's excellent. And it can be very ill when we become just preoccupied with one particular thing that making us happy, and we don't sleep and do all those stuff, and becomes a pathology. And a good point was from Father Andre, when do we seek help, right?
Right. So, this is about, again, if we think in this way, in using this terminology, but instead of removing mental, putting in physical, right? Physical health, reaction, because sometimes things aren't going our way, or when we're running and our timing is going down, or the Montreal Canadiens are losing or something like that, right? Let's just know it's that one time, right? But then because when we get injured, we fall off the bicycle and
Are you jumping when they're scoring and you fall?
Or that kind of thing, hit the ceiling, right? Because of that. So then you recognize that, well, I need help, right? I need to go to get this checked up. And checked up, Band-Aid doesn't help enough, right? So it needs to be treated. And then illness is the extreme of that as well, right? When there's something critical, 911 situation, right? So mental health as well, right? Some things we recognize within ourselves, and we could manage, we could maintain, but then it comes a level also says, I need help. And it's very normal, very good, very mature, for us to, and very self-aware from that point as well. And just to keep in mind that, as Christians, we know who made us, where we come from, and where we're going. God made us. God gave us all these beautiful components of who we are. So our physical, our mental, our emotional, our spiritual, our intellectual. That is God's gift to us, and says, here you are, this is who you are, you're a beautiful human being created in my image and my likeness. Use it, don't abuse it. When you need help, seek it out. They're great people, great resources. Don't be afraid. And just to keep that in mind also when we're going through this.
Yep.
Is that good?
Absolutely. Yeah. So what indicates mental health are all these components. So we talked about mood, and sometimes I find that people have a hard time to identify their emotions and their mood, and it may be easier to notice how their pattern of their thought. At times it is, at times it's not. It really depends. We all have different strengths. So when people are finding themselves in a healthy state, they have a good sense of humor, they can take things as stride, they tolerate their changes, they're able to focus and concentrate on different tasks. And you can see, and you can read probably faster than I speak. So as it keeps on changing, there is once again, it goes, we become sarcastic, the intrusive thoughts overtake, and intrusive thoughts are completely normal. Everybody has intrusive thoughts, but it's most of the time they come and they go and they don't disturb us. When they start disturbing us, that's when the problem starts to take root. And then it moves us into the injured state, and we're distracted. We cannot focus on attacks. Sometimes we're preoccupied with one thought. And in the ill state, it's really those intrusive thoughts are becoming really, can become really dangerous. They can become suicidal. People are unable to work with others. They cannot do they cannot focus on their work. And at times, even the memory and cognitive abilities are also impacted. And the next one is behavioral changes. So once again, it's about our bodies and how we behave in our bodies. So we can be physically and socially active, or our activities decrease and we procrastinate more and more. In avoidance, in the injured state, we avoid any behavior, we skip class, we do not participate in actions with others, and with really ill state, and that's actually really goes to most of these categories, is that huge avoidance and just hiding from life, from people, from others. Physical changes, once again, it's all about our physical body and our regular patterns. Are we able to sleep well? Are we able to choose good nutrition? Feeling energetic? Are we washing our face and taking off the makeup at night, or putting on it if you feel like it, if you want to? Or it starts their indications when things are not going well. And honestly, most often the indications that we tend to notice are those physical changes, right? Because very often the mood and thought and are sometimes not as easy for us to pick up unless we're really working on self-awareness and trying to pick them up. But one of the biggest indicators that things are not going well, it's people will say, oh, I cannot sleep well, I'm having disturbing dreams, I'm forgetting to eat at all, or I cannot stop eating certain thing, I have no energy,
I can't concentrate, or
yeah,
cloud in my mind sometimes.
I don't care about brushing my teeth no more. And so those are really good indicators that something is awry, something doesn't fit well. And as you can see, it progresses, and it progresses into worsening, that way you cannot sleep at all, or cannot wake up at all, and sleep a lot and a lot. And people, once again, everything is to the extreme, either eating too much, not eating enough, with an extreme, even hydration, right? I've met people who have been drinking so much that they ended up drinking water, drinking so much water that they end up in the ICU because they had too much water. And it is a severe mental illness for that, but it can happen. So that's the illness. And the next one is the changes in substance use. So in the healthy situations, as you would know, some people might have a glass of wine with their meal at once a week, maybe twice a week, and it's limited. It's not for the purpose of getting drunk, it's just to enjoy the company, enjoy their meal. And that applies for any sort of substance. So it could be it is sort of behavioral, but it can fit here as well as shopping or watching TV, even though it's to a certain degree is behavior. But when we're using as a substance to cope, and we're doing too much of it, it could be a little, or when it starts overtaking our life, that's when we're becoming ill. Okay.
Very good.
All right. gonna move.
And maybe one more point to this is also that there's no age limit to this, right? Or maybe you've never experienced this in your life until now, right? Situational things. So it could be a young person, could be older person, could be grandparents, right? Or it could be our colleagues next door, somebody who forever looked okay, and all of a sudden, or in ourselves too, like we never recognize these, but it's on the other hand also it's like good to have these terms and these words to sort of
Point of
recognize
reference.
exactly.
Yeah. And very good point, because the other thing is, just because it didn't happen to us now, and maybe it hasn't happened, it doesn't mean that it will not happen in the future. And it does not mean that suddenly that we're not a good Christian, or we're not a faithful human being, or it just means we have a brain and we're respond to our pressures just like everybody else. So these things can happen to any one of us at any time.
They
And
do happen, yeah.
yeah, and they do happen. And the big,
That's part of
yeah,
our life. Part of,
yeah, yeah, and
Lots
the,
of biblical examples there as well.
yeah, and the big point of why we really would like to, with this talk with you, is to take away the stigma that this, because things can happen. If we have a brain, things can happen to any of the brain. And if we are, as human beings, are put under lots of stress, many physical things will happen. One of the examples that is brought up, even Jesus before praying in the Gethsemane, before the cross, and it tells us that he was sweating, so he was sweating blood. So, and once the anxiety of anticipating death even caused him, as his human part of Jesus, to experience that, and also to normalize that each one of us can experience it. Okay, so we wanted to, sorry,
Do you see the full screen? Or
oh yeah, I will just move sorry you guys, if you want to start, and I will just move the screen a little bit here so we can see.
So this is again is a tool almost like of assessment, just like the previous one about when we're seeing how we are in our spiritual journey as well, in relating with God, right? Going from healthy to not healthy.
Yeah. So just because someone is spiritual or has a strong faith and strong belief does not mean that all of it is always healthy. So in my own professional work, and this is how I do assessment when I speak with people, I really look at 4 essential relationships that each one of us has. And the relationships are, if a person is a person of faith, is a relationship with God, relationship with self, with others, and their own environment. So it doesn't matter if we're by ourselves, we still have a relationship. The absence of others in our lives still means relationship with others. And there is once again a continuum that happens of healthy, reactive, injured, and ill. So when our relationship with God is healthy, we trust God's decision for us in our life. We are grateful for what is happening, even if it is a difficult situation. We're still grateful for the opportunity to learn from it. We joyfully engage in our life and with others. We're accepting. We have really high tolerance living with the unknown and not having control. And in reacting situation, we're starting to lose that. And one of the ways, and some of the indications that we're losing, that we over focus on rules and over encountering Christ, and we're over focused on doing things just right. When we get to be injured, we use God talk to hide away, and we use all these rules to hide away from our reality, and our image of God doesn't fit our life experience. And that's very often comes up with when really difficult situations arrive in our lives, and when our own personal spirituality has been left at the stage of preparation for First Communion, right? And that's often a case, and that's when I personally encounter people in their lives, is when people, if you learn math you learn in kindergarten would be very different math that you learn in middle school, and would be very different math that you learn in high school, and even different one if you go in university and learn math. And very often people stop learning about their life and about their spirituality, about God, at the level of that first communion, and that's the middle school. Unfortunately, in life, things happen to all of us, and they're not middle school level.
And when we grow, we're not, in grade, whatever that grade was, right? We're so much older and mature, life experience, and in our relationship with God grows as well.
But sometimes it grows if we give it time, right? If we give it time and effort, and if we leave it at that level, suddenly when things happen, it does not fit no more. So that image of God that we had when we were children does not meet our experience, and often does not meet our suffering, and does not fit, and it's hard to make sense of it. And that can really push us into being either rejecting of God completely, being very afraid of who God is and not trusting him, hiding, and stops us from being able to pray and to even think about encountering that relationship with God.
And those would be indicators for us, when we realize that in our own faith journey, in our prayer time, that this is where we're leaning away from the healthy.
Yep. And then in the relationship with self, once again, we either cherish self-worth as a human being and a child of God. We can embrace work of self-awareness and knowing, I am limited, but I am learning and I continue to learn, and accept all of the emotions that God has gifted me with, or moving towards focusing again on control, rejecting human limitations, living in a sense of helplessness, and really ill one. And that's where it very often intersects with extreme mental health issues. It's loss of purpose, loss of hope, and fragmented sense of self. So only seeing one part of yourself and rejecting another. And I have to say, those are the biggest triggers. And when we're assessing for personal suicidality, is that loss of hope and purpose are the most crucial ones and the biggest indicators that a person is really not doing well. With the essential relationship with others, once again, the healthy indicators would be accepting of others. They can be completely different. There might not be sharing any of my own values, but just because they're human beings, and just because I believe that they're also children of God, I can accept them. I don't have to agree with them, and that does not destroy my view of the world. Have healthy boundaries about personal boundaries, emotional boundaries, physical boundaries, financial boundaries. All of those are right there. And as we become unwell, and sometimes we become unwell because of things like we've mentioned before during the pandemic, things that irritate us, we become avoidant of others, we start to divide life into secular and sacred, and being one person at the church and a different person at work and another person when we go we're friends, and accepting this false humility, meaning like I will put myself down in front of someone, but really this is I don't really believe it, and what's the purpose of it? So it's lack of authenticity. And when we become injured, we allow people to push our boundaries and to cross our boundaries, and taking on this martyr or savior complex, saying, okay, I will take everything, whatever is shoved towards me, or I need to save everybody, and without me, no one will do well, and overdoing these elements. And there is a well-known triangle that is called Carpenter's triangle, and in which there is a victim, martyr, victim in martyr, savior, and then persecutor. And very often if we take on this within the triangle, if we are a martyr for a long time, if we are a victim for a long time, no one can stay there. And because we start to say, no, I'm not going to do this anymore, I will have to fight back. And in fighting back, we become the persecutor, and then we become a savior because we need to save the one who's the victim. And we keep on going in this triangle, and it can be absolutely maddening. And the way out is stepping out and not taking on any of these roles, right? In a healthy way. When we become ill, is being stuck in the triangle, is blaming others, blaming everybody for whatever's happening in our life, adopting this me versus the world versus everybody else way of living. being unable to forgive and just seeing how we are wrong, and being really blinded by either pain or rage. And a next essential relationship is with our environment where we live, like physical environment, our world, our homes, our the street we're on, our place at work. And doesn't matter where we are, we can really be happy and grateful and rejoice that we have a roof over our head, taking responsibility of keeping the environment clean and well cared for. We don't litter, we help with recycling. Or as we become ill, we stop missing the beauty, we stop missing the gratitude. We don't have the gratitude at all. It is what it is. And sometimes it's just frustrating that the mess is always there. And as I say that, I look at my table, which is messy, but it's, instead of seeing that, oh, that's lovely, we have food on the table that needs to be put away, the people see just irritated, oh, why someone else didn't do it, and why is it always messy? And wishing that we were somewhere else. And that's like this culture of being on vacation. I want to be away from here. I want to be away from here. I can't tolerate. This is all not good.
It's like escaping.
Yeah, escapism. Yeah, and dismissing all the personal responsibility
And the gifts.
and the gifts that it brings. And at the ill stage, it's really starting to abuse it and destroy the environment. And we see that on a corporate larger levels. And once again, I will ask Father Andrei to share, like, when at this point, where would you be seeking support?
So, this again, it's an assessment tool of our spiritual condition, right? The continuum, but just to see where we are, right? And just like in the mental health, we see this break between the yellow and the orange, just sort of, it's almost like a threshold point. And just like we go to a physician for physical treatment, we have a family doctor, most of us across Canada, right, that was regularly there. I think one thing that would be important also, and hopefully many have, is to have a spiritual doctor as well, a spiritual director, which is very deep in the roots of our tradition. And when we look at ourselves and when we do this exercise of self-assessment, or however we see within ourselves, that we connect with them, and not just connect when things go 911, but like we'd go to our family physician regularly, every half year, every year, have checkups. So we do also with our spiritual director to maintain a healthy understanding of our relationships with God, ourselves, with others, the environment, and us. So that's I think that would be a nice and a good, healthy way of growing deeper in love with Jesus. Yeah.
So in next one, I want to take you to, again, just giving you information. We're trying to share what we know as much as possible. I know in a short period of time. So the emotions are actually one of the biggest indicators to let us know where we're at, right? And when I teach my students and asking them, what are you feeling? Most of the time, people tell me story about what they're thinking or what has happened, but do not have the language for feelings, and do not know that there are actually 5 major feelings that they're universal feelings. They're very common. Doesn't matter if someone comes from Uganda or Australia or India, everybody will be feeling these feelings at some point in their lives. And those feelings are joy, fear, sadness, anger, and disgust. And under each one of them, I have given you different words of how we can be.
I have a thought. Yeah.
Sure.
I'm sure you've seen the cartoon movie in the last few years. There was that, what was it called? That
Inside Out.
Inside Out, right? So, and each one, if you haven't seen it, it's actually pretty okay. And they have these little characters there. So they actually are each one of these emotions and how they play out within us. So this diagram is not based on movies, it's the other way around. The movie is actually based on this diagram. So they did their research well. Yeah. And it's part, again, of how we are and who we are and how God has made us. Yeah. Yeah. So just little.
Yeah. No, that's good. Thank you. So just being aware, in order to know, are you well? Are you unwell? Where are you on this spectrum, right? Where are you on the continuum of mental health? health, of spiritual health, it's important to be aware of how you feel physically, how you feel emotionally, right? So these are certain words, and I'm not going to be reading them, but you have it in front of you and you will have it later. But sorry, and the next one is, how do we recognize them? We are embodied spirits. We live in our bodies. There is no there isn't a division. Often we think that there is a huge division between spiritual's good, body not good. There is no, you can separate body from the spirit in this world. One works with the other and gives us indication of what's going on. And paying attention to how we feel in our bodies gives us an understanding of what's happening. So once again, body sensations that happen, how we feel the emotions, and you can add your own. This is by no means extensive list, but what you will see, and what I find it sometimes really confusing, is when we feel joy, we can, we smile, we're feeling strong, we can feel calm and confident, we can get tingling. But also, how often have you seen people being, with big information coming down, like some great news, that so happy takes your breath away, right? It's just like so fantastic. It's, oh my God, I can't believe it. A few years back, we have surprised our children with a trip to Disney World. They were so happy, they were crying, literally crying. And crying is, usually we think that this is an expression of sadness, but it can be joyful, right? It can be so moving and it's happy. With fear, once again, often when people get scared, we get into this fight or flight response, and it also can take our breath away. And we get feeling weak in the knees, might not be able to think, tight in the stomach, tight in the chest. Same with anger. How often people who get angry start to breathe heavy. When you feel angry, you might not even know that you're angry, and first thing that you notice that you breathe heavily and that you have extra energy to address an issue that has really irritated you, right? With disgust, usually we don't lose our breath, but even there, like everyone in the world, the emoji for yuck, we all recognize that, right? So, and if it smells really bad, you can breathe, right? So that's where it gets tricky, because our body is telling us what's going on. But sometimes, unless we really pay attention and practice it, it's hard to distinguish what the heck is happening. If I am short of breath, am I afraid? Am I sad? Am I happy? Is this disgusting? What's going on? Right? So it actually takes practice to figure out what body is telling us. Certain things are easier to distinguish, and other times it takes more practice. So I want to invite you to practice. So, and this is the time when you were doing, I'm just going to read through this. You will do it on your own. No one will be, you don't have to share with anybody. This is not a sharing session, but just take a moment to feel, to think, how do you feel? How do you feel? What emotion do you feel? And curious is not emotion.
Want to go back to the other screen?
So we can go back to the screen. Are you feeling joy?
Tips.
Are you feeling fear? Maybe this is new information. Maybe this is freaking you out
This
that you
inner body,
didn't
yeah.
know that before. Maybe you feeling sad that you didn't know this before, or maybe you feeling sad because it's like, oh, this is, what, I'm kind of bored. I know all of this, and I should have, and going to anger, I should have maybe chosen a different presentation because this is boring, or hopefully not disgusting.
maybe joyful says, I'm here. It's awesome. It's excited.
So see how you feel emotionally, and just take a mental note to see how you feel in your body. How does that emotion manifest in your body? So if we can go to the next one.
Next one, back
Yeah,
here.
so here, just mental note. It doesn't have to be long, literally a few moments. Do a scan from the top of your head. How is your face? How is your neck? How is your shoulders, your chest, your tummy, your seat, your legs? Just take a note. And then think about it. Okay, and what is it that I need in this moment? What would you need emotionally, physically, mentally, spiritually? Once again, this is a lot of questions. You might not have an answer in this, but just once again, taking a mental note. Usually our feelings are in response to our needs. And notice, what are your thoughts and reflection about it? Are you approaching this with judgment? Are you approaching this, oh, I should have been thinking, feeling this, I should have been saying this? Are you judging yourself, or are you just observing? Just, that's your little exercise. Do you, Melanie, Victoria, do you think that people, or anybody else, would you need more time to kind of reflect on this, or should we move on?
Has everyone had a chance to reflect? Or would you like one more minute? Get thumbs up from Alex. Sure. So yeah, let's keep going, and we'll start questions at 1:30 and we'll end at 1:40.
And again, these things, you know, it takes a few times. That's what will provide you the PowerPoint also for you to have, right? Yeah.
So as you can see, during the day, we have different emotions. We have a flex of emotions, right? We feel high and lows. So we are not always feeling super high. We're not always feeling, it just kind of goes. I wake up in the morning, coffee is, I'm out of coffee. I might be irritated, right? Or there is my favorite coffee. I might have a little, I might be happy. So either the bus is on time or I'm late, or so the emotions are all respond to our experience, and it goes back and forth. And when all of this, it's comfortable, it's tolerable, it fluctuates, all is fine. Or the problem becomes when we leave our comfort zone, when we leave our window of tolerance, and we become either hyper-aroused or hyper-aroused. And hyper-arousal, it's extreme awareness and vigilance, overwhelming feeling, highest levels of anxiety. So outbursts of anger, panic, impulsivity, and having racing thoughts. So, and same event can cause very, very different response. So let's say I am late for the bus, and I could be just like, okay, the bus is late, that's fine. Or if I have a presentation that for which I have, and that means that, you know, my senior leadership will be at the presentation, and suddenly I am panicking, and suddenly this is not just being late for the bus. It means seemingly it's late for the bus, but my response is so much bigger than being late for the bus, right? So it can throw a person, throw me into that hyper arousal. The same goes and I'm out of my comfort zone, right? So then I need to do something not to stay at that hyper zone, because it makes it really difficult to tolerate. On the other hand, at times things can happen, and even the same bus, like the same example of the bus, late for the bus, and if I had a poor night's sleep, and if I have a, you know, overwhelmed with the with what the pandemic is doing, feeling disconnected, and makes me, oh, why bother anyway, right? Everything is horrible, and the shutdown, and feeling unmotivated. Why get up? Oh, the bus was supposed to be, and now the TTC never is working well. Everything is awful, and withdrawing and moving into. So the event can be the same, but the reaction can be super different. So what's important is to be able to notice, where are you at? Are you in comfort zone? Can you tolerate these little fluctuations? Or what does it do to you? Is it throws you into a hyper state, or is it throwing you into a hypo state? It doesn't make you feel extremely irritable, panicked, impulsive. Is it making you withdrawn, unmotivated, avoiding other people? Right? And so what throws us out? And what throws us out the most is, it's a really good acronym. It's going nuts. We go nuts when things are new. Remember when you go to school for the first time, or you go to a new job for the first time, you're meeting people for the first time. Anything first, new, makes us more anxious, right?
Churches are closed.
Churches are closed. Yeah, this is new. Not being able to go to Easter for services, this is new. Unpredictability. You have no control what's actually gonna happen. You don't know what's happening. Threat to your personality. So someone will perceive you as not professional, not prepared, not doing, like, there is a threat to who you are. Someone will think, oh, they're Christian. That must, if they're saying they're Catholic under these circumstances that were happening now with, oh, that must be a really bad person. Maybe we need to tell them how we feel about them. And then the loss of sense of control. So things are out of our control. So when that happens, it very often throws us out of that window of tolerance. And triggers, especially if most of us have had some difficult history in life, all of us have had it, being coming from a family of immigrants, or just having, life is never easy. That's part of life as growing up. And we can be triggered from the past. A sound, a smell, a sight, a touch, a taste can bring memory like this, and suddenly we're right there, we're afraid and we don't know what's going on, and it's overwhelming. This is not to avoid triggers, but to be aware of them and to say, well, but I'm not there anymore, right? I'm not that little child anymore. Just because I smell gasoline, it does not mean that it will be an explosion somewhere close by. It doesn't mean that someone who I love will die, right? It's that being able to recognize and notice. So one of the important things with mental health is to have that emotional awareness, work on the emotional awareness, notice and observe how you feel throughout the day, label that emotion without labeling if it's good or bad. Often people say, oh, anger is bad. And I always say especially to my students, on University Avenue in Toronto, we have all these hospitals. We have, UHN, PMH, Cancer Hospital, Sinai Hospital, Sick Kids Hospital, all of that on one street. And I say, it's fueled by anger. These hospitals run by anger because people are so angry with the disease. They invest in research, they fight. Anger can be very, very, very helpful. People survive because of anger, right? So taking away the label that one emotion is good, the other is not. It's what we do with that emotion that is important, right? So allowing yourself, giving yourself permission to feel, giving yourself permission that, you know what, there is a day that I will feel like just hanging out in PJs, and I will not judge myself for it, right? Sometimes we're so tired, we just need to rest. We need to honor that for physically and emotionally to rest. When we start to think, oh, if you're hanging out in PJs means you're a bad human being, you're a bad mother, you're a bad Christian, that's what makes the experience negative and moves us into illness, right? So, but allowing ourselves to just feel and live it helps. And also paying attention, what is it that you need? When you're feeling a certain emotion, what is it alerting you to? What is it that your need is? Do you need a hug? Do you need someone to accept you as you are? Do you need some help? What is it that you need? And then act on that need, right? If there are days that I need a hug when I come home, and there are days that I say, please don't touch me because too many people have, right? And I need just to stay quiet for a while. So communicating and acting on what we need. And engaging your spiritual life, honoring your spirit, being curious. And sometimes I think that's what we're missing, is that beginner's mind. We think, okay, we should be able to say Our Father or go to liturgy or do this and this and feel satisfied. And often you might not feel satisfactory. And say, whoa, why do we say this? Or what does it actually mean? Why do we say Hospode Pomeli so many times? What does Lord Mercy means? What is it all about? And it's okay to have the beginner's mind say, you know what, even though I've heard it for 100 times, I'm not actually certain, feel kind of weird. So it's good to investigate. Having an attitude of gratitude and inspiration, having loving kindness towards yourself and towards other, and spending time to seek meaning and purpose in life, and to seek meaning and purpose in the hard situations when they come about. Being playful and having interpersonal experiences that are very important with people that we love. Anything else that you would like to add?
Yeah, this is no. Sometimes we battle within ourselves about, well, is this being very egotistical because I'm really focusing on myself, kind of thing. It's just about very selfish. But if we're able to take, in order to be able to care for others, you have to be able to care for yourself for sure. If you have nothing to give, what can you give and how can you help? So you have to first take care of what God has given you, be in tune, be aware, and take care of that in order to be able to have the tools and have the resources and have the strength and the wisdom to be able to help others. So this is, I think, one of those elemental attitudes towards this as well.
I was doing this to my daughter because she's walking around. We're asking her to be quiet. And the recommendations to do this. So when we're already starting to be reactive and we're starting to move towards illness, it's hard to suddenly start praying, right? Or the prayer, the practice, when it's our daily practice, it's easy to use that tool because it's already there, it's available. When someone is telling you to do something in the midst when you are not ready to do it, you cannot start something new, right? So I would really encourage you to have this as a daily practice. Pray, read the scriptures, speak with people who share your values and beliefs. So you have those tools already available to you, not when the crisis arrives, but I mean, when the crisis arrives, it's available to you because you've practiced it before, right? Having this daily check-ins with yourself. There's no other way to know what's going on unless you are spending the time and you practice to see, how you feel, how do I feel emotionally? What is happening to me? How do I feel that in my body? How do I respond? So you know, it's not about anybody else. It's about how, so you know, how does your body feel when you're sad and what degree of sadness? How do your body feel when you're angry and at what degree of anger, or happy or disgusted or fearful, right? And how does your spirit feel? What happens to you? How are you, those essential relationships? What is the indication to you? Are you in a healthy spot or not? How are you with God? I would say, as Father Andrei said before, spiritual direction is in our community and our church is there for a reason. It's very helpful and it guides us. Participating in the sacramental life, highly recommended, and participation in the life of the community and sharing your Christian values. So really being with someone where none of us is meant to do this alone. None of us. One of the biggest spiritual distresses is isolation. So we are meant to be with others. There, I mean, historically, there have been some monastics that moved away, but they have, even in the absence of those monastics, they have been a part of a community by praying for their brothers or their sisters in Christ, and they have not started out there. And none of us is us to start it out there. And yeah.
I just wanted to add one thing also. Sometimes we feel like, when we need assistance, spiritual assistance, we need to go to people who are wise, who are available to us there, like either the parish or my parish. But sometimes, it's nice to go there for liturgy, to be there to hear the homily, participate in the sacramental life. But when it comes on one-on-one, there's not that connection, right? So I would recommend almost, find somebody who you connect with or who you could develop a trusting relationship with to grow further. No, spiritual direction, but also in participating community in that way too, where you have like common ideas, common thoughts that speaks to your soul, that nurtures you, right? Because that is truly the Holy Spirit bringing you together, right? And guides you.
And the community where you belong, which means that it's not that you fit in, but where you belong. And the biggest distinction is when we need to fit in, it means that parts of us we have to throw out because it doesn't fit. But the community that is genuine and is loving, and we have had an experience of being in the community that is coming to community with everything you are. So whoever I am at home, whoever I am at the church, whoever I am at work, it's the same person. I don't have to cut pieces of myself. I might disclose different and focus on different pieces of my personality and being in professional world versus friends or church community. But at the end of the day, I am the same person, right? And this is what we're called to be. We are called to be who we are in our faith, in our mental health, everywhere, wherever we are. And if something is not working well, or if you find yourself noticing that you are unwell, mentally unwell, and you need support from a physician, please get the support from the physician. There's absolutely no shame in being able to recognize it and to get the help.
Be not afraid.
Yeah, and this is our presentation. So we're going to try to stop sharing. Pause,
And
but alhamdulillah.
in the meantime, I would like to thank you for bridging the worlds of psychology and faith that are so often separated, and also for helping to help destigmatize mental health and mental illness, because we all experience highs and lows and things even beyond those highs and lows. So thank you so much for your words. And we only have a little bit of time left, but I have maybe a question that can be answered quickly. It's how can we help to validate the feelings of others, especially if we know that they have a mental health issue?
So I would say that validating feelings, it just sometimes maybe it's not validating. If it's a response when someone is ill, what we do is not necessarily validating, but normalizing the response. And it's okay to say, to name what you're seeing. And I think very often we think if we name something, then we create it, and that makes us very afraid. So to say, well, I see that you're frustrated, it doesn't mean that I made him frustrated, right? But I can say, yes, I can see that you're frustrated. And would you like to talk about it, or would you like to drop it at this time? What is it that you need? Is just allowing a person to be who they are, and recognizing and validating, yep, you can feel well or you can feel unwell, and it's okay.
And a big part of it is about listening, right? That's when you have the time to listen with the heart and just not even saying much, but to again, to validate. Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much. So this breakout room will be ending, and we'll see you in a small group discussion.